Working in a FAANG or FANMAG often is a dream for most students after their first Hello World application runs. However, landing a role often feels like an insurmountable challenge. In this episode, our host Raymond Klutse sits down with Chisom Nwokwu, formerly working at Microsoft as a software engineer and the author of A Techie's Guide into Big Tech Companies. She's mastered the blueprint for landing roles at top firms, from crafting standout resumes to acing technical interviews. She shares her tips with us for those who are aiming to build global careers. Enjoy this episode. Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to the Tech Self Podcast, where we navigate today's tech wave one electrifying conversation at a time. I am your host, Raymond Klutse, and today I have the one and only Chisom Nwokwu, who is here to talk us through her interesting journey into tech and how she has been able to carve a very good career for herself, or still carving a good career for herself, and also giving back to the community, mainly how she got into big tech. That's what I'm very, very, intrigued about. So, Chisom, thank you so much for making time today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Amen. Thank you so much. Okay, so I want you in a short amount of time to, introduce yourself for those who do not know who Chisom is, a bit of a background, and then we can get into the juice of today's conversation.
Hi everyone. If you're listening to this podcast, my name is Chisom. I see myself as a couple of things because I am a lot of things. So firstly, professionally, I am a software engineer. I currently work as a software engineer at Microsoft. The Lagos office in particular. I
Mm,
currently help product teams build more sustainable software, and I do that like with my data engineering experience. I work with big data a lot, and it's something that I have come to become really passionate about. So aside work, I do a lot of advocacy for tech, women in technology, being your best self in the tech space, getting into like international companies. I am an author. I currently have a book titled A Techie's Guide into Big Tech. And I wrote this book from a point of passion, literally, to help other people, especially Nigerians and Africans, know that they have a slot at these companies. It's not just for
mm,
people that are like abroad or people that like school like in Ivy League
right,
and all of that.
right.
So this book is very dear to my heart. I wrote the book to help people. It's a career book. It's technical as well, and it's more like a storyline for me and like my personal views.
Mm.
Also, I am a YouTuber. I love creating content. um,
And that's amazing, an
yeah,
amazing job at it.
I love creating content. I love speaking to people. I love encouraging people, inspiring people. My YouTube is like a place where I can share my story, share my experiences, document like my life as a software engineer, my life as a 20 something year old, just being like a girly girl in
Mm,
tech. So
right,
that's the angle I'm
right,
coming from. So
right.
other things, yeah, I'm a public speaker as well. I love speaking. I mean, I'm on this platform. I
Mm.
love speaking. I've spoken at over like I think at this point is about 100 plus events in the
Wow,
space
that's
of 2
impressive.
years, like both
Right.
physically and virtually. And yeah, I think
Mm.
other things I do, I really love chilling. I just really love watching movies. I love music as well. I love classical music. I love cooking. And yeah, I just love
We'll
everything.
get into it. We'll get to more of the things that you love to
Yeah.
do. Okay, so let's go back a bit into time. You were in high school and then you were choosing your courses. Would you say you were one of those people whose parents kind of navigated their career, or you just naturally had a knack for the things that have led you to become a techie? Because obviously as a techie background, math, science, that kind of
Yeah, the
stuff.
usual.
Was there a time along the line where you probably were swaying towards, maybe like you say, like music, become a musician, but then
Oh.
you were told that to become a musician maybe you'll be hungry a little bit for a while before you get some money? Just walk us through that whole process of how choosing courses and everything, and then how
Mm.
you go here.
Yeah, I think my parents are like, I call them, I would say in that case they were freelancers.
Mm,
They gave me and my sister like an opportunity to explore as much as we could. We had
right.
computers in the house. At some point my dad got me a violin and he got my sister a saxophone. At some point we had video games. At some
Wow.
point we had like, I mean, we had different things to experiment on, right?
Mm,
So I think that they just gave us like a canvas to play on. Like they
mm,
didn't really restrict us to a certain field. My parents were very aware of like our strengths, where we're like very strong in, and
mm,
they would just give you prompts. Oh, you're good at this. Oh, I think you
mm,
do this. I think you do that. But they didn't really like restrict us to do like some certain kind of courses. I don't know if I've answered your
mm.
question.
Yeah, yeah, you have, you have. Okay, so having gone through high school, I did, did a bit of reading.
Oh,
You read, so like so mathematics in there, English and that kind of stuff, and your A levels and all that.
yeah.
And then getting into uni,
Mm-hmm.
right? You just choose to, do computer science.
Mm,
With a background like that, there are probably, other options, maybe engineering or even computer
yeah.
engineering or the traditional medicine because every parent wants their
No,
child to
that was
become a
me.
doctor. Exactly. But when was I know your parents introduced you to computers. When was the first time you realized that, you know what, I want to delve into this computers, I want to delve into this tech thing and
Mm.
want to potentially make it a career? When was that aha moment for you?
I think for me, at that point, I didn't even know tech was, tech was like a buzzword. Tech just literally
Right.
became a
Yes.
buzzword.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right. Right.
I didn't even know there was anything like tech at that point. But I
Mm,
just knew
mm,
that. I remember the first time my dad brought back a couple of boxes. He brought back like a CPU, a monitor, a
right.
printer, when those things were still like
Wow, these I know, right? Now that you're saying it, I don't remember the last time I really sat to really,
yeah,
have
the
one
full
around me.
package. So they set it
Time has
up
really
on like
gone.
the decks, and
Mm,
the first thing I saw was Windows Vista, and just
mm,
like, oh, input your password, and I was sold. Like I was totally sold. So he got us like a tutor. This
mm,
book, there's this computer book that's quite old. It's quite colorful. So I would
mm.
always remember my mom saying, "Oh, your eyes, don't stay on the computer too late," because I would literally sleep on the table, just trying
Wow.
out different things. So I just knew, I didn't really know that there was a thing like, oh, career path and all those stuff. But I just knew
Mm,
that if I want to do anything for a long time, it should definitely be in front of this computer.
mm,
I would definitely love to like do something for a while, like with this. And
mm.
not too long from then, he brought back like a laptop. And it was quite interesting that everything I was using could be
Right.
coupled into one small
One
thing.
small device that you can move around.
Exactly. So I didn't really know there was a word like innovation at that point, but I knew that that was like a
Mm,
step forward, and
right.
it was just quite interesting, honestly.
Mm.
And so I would do things like Paint, I would do things like PowerPoint, Excel. I'll surf the internet.
Solitaire.
Yes, everybody played that game. Everybody played that game.
Right.
So it was quite interesting. So after doing those things, I just knew that that was just the point for me. It wasn't tech or
Mm,
programming for me. It was just, this is fun and this is what I would
mm.
love to do. Yeah. So that
Mm,
was it for me.
nice, nice. So you're going to study computer science, right? And I know people, glamorize. Oh, I'm in tech. Or I went to study computer science. But then you go through the typical, data structures and algorithms. You go through the heavy math and everything. What was it like as a computer science student for you? What were some of the
Uh,
highs and the lows you had?
it wasn't fun.
Mm,
It wasn't fun because I wasn't using my computer most of the time. It was more or
right.
less theoretical. And I would always tell people that I didn't really have it easy. I remember the first programming course I took, that was Introduction to Programming. I failed that course. I actually had like a carryover in that course. Yeah, very surprising.
Wow.
So I was scared. I was like, this is something I want to do, and this is a blocker. Is this field really for me? Will I really
Mm,
do well in this field? So I failed the
mm,
course, and I had to retake that course again. And I also struggled with some math courses and
mm,
statistics courses as well.
mm. Mm,
those things weren't so new to me, but I just saw myself struggling. I think those were the lows for me. But
mm,
the highs was that going on the internet and seeing that computer science was a very in demand degree, especially in the field I want to go into, I started
mm,
to appreciate the fact that I'm doing like a BSc in computer science. I know that
right.
that's the
Mm,
privilege some people don't have, because you have some people that are in tech now and they're like, oh, I wish I did CS instead of like
mm,
other courses.
mm,
So I started
right.
to not despise what I'm going through and actually
Mm,
see it as a privilege that, oh, I'm here and I just need to, this is computing. You definitely need math. You definitely need statistics. So you just need to put your head down and learn. So I think when I failed the course, that was just an opportunity for me to understand exactly what I was doing, because I wasn't
right.
reading it as a course the second time. I was
Mm,
actually
mm,
practicing the
right.
actual code on my laptop.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
happy I failed the course. I'm happy I didn't just take it like a usual course. I'm happy that I actually absorbed what was in the course. And I think that was the best thing that happened to me, honestly.
Nice, nice. How would you say, studying in Nigeria was like for you,
Mm,
compared to
yeah,
now we see a lot of, self-learning and everything, and
yeah,
we even see a lot of people who go abroad. How would you say the learning experience was for you, and what did you do to supplement where it was not really, working for you? Did you go down the typical YouTube route,
mm,
self-study, or you ended up joining boot camps and everything to supplement the gaps? Because we all know that school will just give you, the
yes,
information, the
yeah,
theory and everything, but you sit behind your piece. I mean, we can all write hello world when our
true.
first hello world makes us feel good, until you go into an exam where you have to be behind a PC, and then they've given you some data, or they're giving you some stuff to like develop an app or
Yeah.
something, like a travel app or something.
Mm.
The hello world can just do so much, but then you have to go
Doesn't cut
further.
it,
How did
yes.
you yes, exactly, like what was the educational like system like for you in Nigeria, and how did you supplement it with other
Yeah.
other things
I
eventually?
think it gave me structure. That's what I would say. The
Mm,
the educational system gave me some structure. I knew the courses I would do in the next
mm,
2 3 years.
mm,
And that gave me like some certain kind of structure to now know what to research on. So
mm,
how I did it was I learned something in class. I still remember some of my courses, system
mm,
design. They didn't make sense to me at that point
mm.
until it didn't make sense to me until I started interviewing for roles and I had to start doing system design
Right,
all over
right,
again.
right.
So I think I just did I go to class, I learn what I'm being taught, I come back home, I actually go on YouTube to see like the real life application, how are these things applied. And I think that's an advice I'll have for most students. You'd appreciate what you're learning in school when you can see like a more realistic approach to exactly what you're doing.
Mhm,
Like
mm,
I'll take the blog, Netflix engineering blog, for instance. There's a
mhm,
lot of
mhm.
system design there. So if
Right.
you're in the classroom and you're learning things around catching, latency, and all those stuff, you go on the Netflix page and you see those words used. You're going to
Mm,
class the next day feeling very enthusiastic.
right.
You're literally hungry for more knowledge.
Right. Right.
Other things would
Right.
be Nigerian universities won't really push you to build projects that you
Mm,
actually need to get a job, most
mm,
likely until your
mm,
final year when you're doing like your
mm.
final year project. But
Right.
I didn't wait till that time, right?
Right.
I knew that tech was all about building, solving problems, making things easier for people. And
Mm,
so I went ahead to build my first app. I think I launched my first app in 2020 on Play Store,
mm.
and I was in 200 level at that point. So I was already feeling myself. I was like,
Wow.
I'm in 200
Okay.
level.
There. Yeah. You got it. You're
And yeah,
the
so
techie girl.
yes,
Right.
I've gotten the drill.
Mm,
I think I saw myself as a really seasoned CS student when I launched my app on
mm,
Play Store, because it was all
mm,
around software. So I think
mm.
supplementing it with videos, looking at things that are very realistic to like apply to what you've already learned and get your hands
Right.
dirty. Right. Most
Mm,
universities, I don't even think it's just for maybe BSc.
mm,
MSCs, you still do research. PhD, you still do research. So it
mm,
still depends on you, on how
mm,
you can actually put together all those things that you've learned and just
mm,
apply it to
mm,
building and just making up something that can solve
mm,
problems for people. So
mm.
It's not a
Right.
lot, but you as a student you still have a lot of work to do outside the classroom.
Mm, all right. Did you join any boot camps along the journey? Did you find them to be very helpful? How has, those kind of, programs helped you? That's if you were part of any.
I think for boot camps, I applied to some boot camps, but the issue was they were so expensive.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm in Nigeria. I We don't do dollars here. We do naira. So when
Right.
you're seeing 15,000 K for a boot camp, and you're asking yourself, oh wow, this is too expensive. So I interviewed for a few boot camps. I remember Coding Dojo. I think I did an interview with Coding Dojo. I also
Mm,
searched for like scholarships, but that couldn't work. And that was a lot of money at that point. So I had to look for like other routes to like teach myself. YouTube was one of them.
mm,
I
mm,
think I got like a Udacity scholarship to
mm,
learn
mm,
like Android development. So that
mm,
helped. Books as
mm,
well. My friends at that point that were already like some levels higher than me, they helped me as well. So it was just a combination of those little things that weren't super expensive, but they were quite helpful. So I don't think I went for a boot camp. I just used YouTube tutorials,
mm,
little mentorship from people, and
mm.
hard work. Yeah.
Right. All right. And it shows. It shows in the way
Ah,
you've been able to navigate your career. Now
yeah.
let's talk about big tech, all right?
Okay.
Big tech is everyone's dream. Well, I
Mm.
don't know
Not
if
everybody
it
though.
still is. Well, okay. Let me rephrase. Almost everyone, because
Are you
of the
serious?
way it's been. I think so, because I think when I was starting my, so I read IT for my
Hmm.
bachelor's, right? And
Yeah.
whenever we were always talking, everyone was like, "Oh, the goal is to work at, one of the FAANGs or one of, it was always like focused there. Like it felt like that was the only thing or a lot of people could see. Now, for me, I didn't really. My journey into tech hasn't been the smoothest. I also
Yeah.
didn't really like go through the best of experiences, and every time they kept on talking about it, I felt like I missing out on something? Was I like, because the whole tech thing, to be honest, it's actually now that I'm actually even like realizing that, okay, because I went further to do a master's in data science, and that was
Oh,
what led me to the
nice.
UK and everything.
Mm.
But it wasn't necessary. I wasn't the techie that was in class that was intrigued by, oh, writing, like an object from a class, that kind of stuff. I was just, like just going through the motion. I
Yeah.
eventually joined some guys to work on a small project after
Yeah.
uni, and the project worked out. There were a few failures there and there, but I learned a lot from that. Like from that time, it was an Android app. We're trying to do something like
Oh, nice.
Uber for a company in Canada. It was so much, but every time I was around techies, they kept on mentioning big tech. It was always the big tech, the Facebook, the Amazon, the Netflix, the Google, the Microsoft, like all that. You understand me? I'm wondering, like, for you, was
Mm.
big tech something that was like a goal? Like, if I don't get into big tech, my career, my career in tech is done, or you just saw it as an opportunity to want to stretch yourself a little bit more, or be able, or maybe let's talk about it, the Chisom. Maybe it was the money attraction. Just walk me
Okay.
through big tech. What
I
really
think
attracted you to big tech?
what really attracted me. So I wasn't super. I knew that I would definitely end up like in a huge tech company. Like I would
Mm,
usually tell my parents. When we got like our first desktop, it was Windows Vista. So I would usually tell myself,
okay.
"Oh, I would like to work for Windows one day." I actually didn't know
Wow.
that was Microsoft. I
Right.
just thought I would like to work for Windows one day.
Fair.
So
Right.
I saw Microsoft as a place where you go to when you have like 5 years of experience, 6 years of
Mm,
experience, the big guys,
mm,
right?
mm,
So I was like, okay, I'm going to get my first job, work hard, 4 years, applied to Microsoft, and they're going to take me in. And when I was looking for jobs, I wasn't really going towards the big tech crowd. I was going for like
mm,
startups in Nigeria that could
mm,
like take me as an intern. I applied to a couple of startups for junior roles. So they kept saying, "Oh, you don't have experience. We don't have the capacity to train or
mm,
hire
mm, mm,
interns. We just want people that can get the job done ASAP."
mm,
And I
mm,
wasn't in that space because I
mm,
just launched an app. I didn't really have like experience from anywhere, right? So
mm,
at that time, the big tech boss say coming to like um my it was just around me, right? So
Mm,
I joined like the Microsoft Student Partners program where you're like Microsoft ambassadors in the university. And
mm,
I didn't really join that program to get into Microsoft, honestly. It was just like a student kind of like volunteering to like add to your
mm,
experience and all of that.
mm,
So
mm,
in that group, I met two people. There were, I think they were looking to get into big tech companies at that point. So we had like a little group chat. I made friends with them. We were friendly and all of that. And
mm,
so someone sent me a link, a Bank of America link. Oh, Bank of America is accepting interns. And I looked through
mm.
the link and I saw that they weren't requesting for 2 years of experience. They weren't requesting for 1 year of experience. They just
Right.
needed people that were hungry to learn. And I
Mm,
was like, oh,
mm,
this is the difference between the other companies I was applying to that were actually looking for people that had more experience. So I actually appreciated that, right? So
right.
after applying to Bank of America, I felt really good. I'm like, okay, if this is a thing, if other people are doing it, let me take it a step further. Let me start applying to
Mm,
these bigger companies. So I went to the Google career website. I saw internship openings and I wasn't seeing 2 years of experience, 3 years of experience. So I'm like, okay, big tech companies actually have more bandwidth to employ people like me that are still in school and don't really
mm,
have much of an experience. And so
mm,
that was where I was sold. I was like, okay, let me focus on big tech rather than trying to prove myself for something I don't even know.
mm,
So that's when I started focusing on big tech.
mm.
I applied to a couple of companies. I even applied to Tesla at some point. Like I was applying everywhere.
Wow, you were
I was
determined.
like, I'm
I keep saying
definitely
the FAANG, the FAANG. After a while, we're going to have to expand it.
exactly.
FAANG cannot take it any longer. Yeah.
Exactly. So I applied to Facebook, Google, Tesla, Netflix, Stripe. I mean, I was literally putting my resume everywhere because I know one thing I noticed that the consistency was that these websites had graduate links.
Mm,
Like when you go to a
mm,
website, you see jobs, you see students and graduates, then you see
mm,
experience.
mm,
So I was like,
mm,
okay, this is actually the best way I could get into my first
mm,
job. And so I
mm,
was mostly applying for internships and graduate roles. And I think that was just where everything started. That was where I started like
mm,
I wasn't interested in like my companies here anymore. I was now looking at the top guys. I was like, okay, these guys have capacity to train me.
mm,
I'm going to focus on
mm,
applying to this type of
mm.
companies. So yeah, that was it for me.
Right. That's nice. Your journey is an interesting one, but I've also heard from people who have had it very tough
Mm,
in to get into big tech.
mm,
And because you've written a book about a guide to getting hired to big tech, what would you say are some of the barriers or some of the things that have changed
mm,
like since back then? Because now we're currently in a phase of the layoffs and everything. A lot of things are changing, right?
exactly. Mm,
What would you say are some of the things that are changing when it comes to getting to big tech, and how do you think people, whether in their early stage or mid or even experienced people, can use all that is going on
uh-huh.
to either still want to go for big tech or maybe think about pivoting? Yeah, pretty much.
I don't think a lot has changed, honestly. How I see it
Okay.
is the industry in a whole has changed, right? People, I think I did a video on that.
Yeah.
People are no longer looking for mediocre stuff. People
Mm,
want to hear you talk about big projects, right?
mm,
I think I did like a joke on my channel where I said if you were building to-do lists and weather applications in
yeah.
2016,
Back
you
then it was
yeah,
cool,
back
but
then it
now.
was you can literally come to an interview and say, "Oh, what have you worked on?" You're like, "Oh, I worked on a weather app," and they're like, "Oh, nice, tell us about it." But
Mm,
now
mm,
the dynamics have changed. Companies want you to wow them, literally.
mm,
So I always
mm,
tell people that the market now is very, very competitive, even if you're applying as an intern. So whatever you're learning, you just have to level up.
mm,
You just have to level up, honestly. Learn as though you want to be the best person in your field. Don't learn as though, oh, they'll take me as I am. This is what I know. This
mm,
is where I'm going to stop. No. Go like above and beyond. I think the experience level as well. You see some companies asking for 2 years of experience, but
now for even for graduates or even for
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So you're competing with people that are your age that have like 5 years of experience because people have
Mm,
even gone that far. So I think it's
mm,
just the quality of the things that you're building, the quality of networks that you have, and also how you can present yourself, your soft skills. One thing about me is when I was applying to these companies, I know I didn't have experience, but
Mm.
the way you would hear me talk, you think I have worked at
Odogun.
as you think I've worked at 5 companies.
Right.
I will speak
Right.
with so much confidence and so much
Mm.
enthusiasm. I'm not speaking
Mm.
as though, oh, pity me, employ me, I'll do my best. No,
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
selling myself to you. And I think that's what most people don't know how to do yet. Because I know people at that time, they were more experienced than me, and I got the
Mm.
job, and they didn't. So the difference is how I sold myself. So at this point, you just want to be, you just want your everything around you to be in check. Your skills are in check. Your experiences
Mm.
are in check. The kind of projects you've built, your portfolio is in check. Your network is in check. The way you speak, the way you answer questions, the way you approach problem solving questions, problem solving
Mm.
technical like coding questions, right? So you just
Mm.
have to be on your A game, right? You
Mm.
don't have to leave space for any because there's someone that's going to be definitely better than you. So you just have to always be on your game. So not a lot has changed, but you just have to step up. I think everybody, if you want
Mm.
to work for a big tech at this point, you just need to step up your game and just be your best self, literally.
Mm. All right. That's impressive. The interview process for big tech can be very tricky. Walk us
Yeah.
through how it was for you. Definitely you have to go through the coding interviews and all that kind of stuff. What was that experience like for you? Or first and foremost, walk us through what it was like for you, the interview process into big tech, and how that experience was for you in general. Yeah.
I think first of all, I'll say it was hard. I won't sugarcoat it in any way that it was.
Mm,
I was sipping ice cream when I was doing the interview. I
mm,
was
mm, mm,
sweating. I was literally sweating. So I would say
mm,
that this process is different for a lot of companies, but there are some
mm,
similarities.
mm,
Firstly, is some companies do like a phone call interview where they call you and they're telling you, they're just asking you basic questions about yourself. And the mistake
mm,
I made is I thought those phone call interviews were just regular interviews, like, oh, hi Chisom, how are you doing today? And I'm like
mm,
casually answering questions. I didn't know that
mm,
they actually track those things, right? The
mm,
mistake I made at some point, I think I was interviewing with Google. They called me while I was on transit and they asked if I
mm,
could reschedule the call. And I said no, because I thought it was like a normal, how are
mm,
you?
mhm,
You
mhm,
applied, we can't wait.
mhm.
I flopped it. In that
Oh
same phone call
no.
interview, I got like a teaser question, like, oh, if
Mm,
you have 5 balls here, 3 balls here,
mm,
and you want to balance the scale. And I was not in the right headspace to think about that
right,
question. So
right.
they differ. There are phone call interviews. There are like whiteboard interviews before COVID, but I didn't do a whiteboard interview because there was COVID, so it was online. Some companies do like rounds of interviews, like 3 rounds, 4 rounds, where they ask you like a coding question, you answer the question, you do like big O efficiency checks, you talk about
Mm,
your solution, talk about how you can improve it, then you move over to either the next question or another interviewer that would ask you their own questions, right?
mm,
Then some companies do like interviews with hiring managers. I feel like if you get like an interview with hiring manager, you have a
mm,
chance to
mm,
get into the company. Yeah, because most people don't get
mm,
to that stage. Other companies do system design at the last phase where they just want to hear you talk about how you can design a system, a simple system, or something like Uber, Twitter, Airbnb, those like software that we use day to day. Talk about like databases, catching, how you can scale that system, just basic system design knowledge. Then some other companies do math. I think Palantir and Goldman, they do like some kind of math
mm,
problem solving and all of that. So they
mm,
differ. So I'd always advise people that before you interview or before you start preparing for an interview, they will send you an email, quite all right, telling you how the process will be. But you still
mm,
have some work to do to go like deeper into the internet to find out how it
mm,
was for other people, the mistakes
mm,
that they made, the
mm,
loopholes, and just generally what to expect. But just
mm,
expect that you're going to be drilled. You're going to be drilled. The things that you feel like they won't ask you, they're definitely going to ask you.
mm.
So
Right.
be very good with your system design knowledge. I mean, data structures and algorithms is a no brainer. You shouldn't put that aside. Then
Mm,
behavioral interviews as well, I forgot to mention that when they ask you things like, oh, tell me about yourself, that's not just a regular question. That
Mm,
question is very, very systematic. I think I spent
mm.
a week drafting my answer to that question. Tell me about yourself.
Wow.
It's not just something you
Wow.
babble.
You don't just say, and I
You're
woke
like,
up
yeah.
and I had a great time and I coded and no, no, no. There are key things.
I spent time
Can you
drafting.
drill down a little bit into that? You know, someone may be
Tell me about
listening and maybe
yourself.
be, yeah, like some of the key things that one will want to highlight
Yeah.
when talking about things
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
I added like the template on my book, but
Right.
you start with, first of all, you're not just casually answering the question, oh, I'm from Nigeria. No, this question actually seeks to expose the kind of experience you have, your
Mm,
potential in the company, and the kind of person you are, both
mm,
technically and you as a human being in the whole.
right.
So you start
Right.
with your name, start with your degree, of course, the little experience that you have, your strengths, the potential you have to like add value to a company, what
Mm-hmm.
you're looking forward to in your career.
Mm,
So this question is
mm,
just like, you're meant to answer this question under a minute, but in that one
mm,
minute, you're not meant to babble. You're meant to
mm,
just layer out these points because it's not just a casual question like I mentioned. Then other
mm,
questions like, oh, what would you do in a situation where you have a conflict with your coworker? Will you keep malice and delay the work that is meant to be done? Are you going to fight? So they just want, this questions just literally want to know you as a human being. What kind of person
mm,
are you? What
mm,
would you
mm,
do if the probably the salary you're negotiating isn't working, right?
mm,
What would you do if you're being shunned in an interview, or maybe you're in
mm,
a meeting with your colleagues and you try to say something and they're like, no, 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 no. We don't want that idea. That's a bad
mm,
idea. Are you going to
mm,
react? Are you going to
mm,
speak to someone later? So behavioral questions like this, people tend not to prepare for it because they feel like, oh, it's just behavioral questions. I'll say what is in my head. That's
mm,
just where you're going to start failing because all these questions have systematic answers to them. Companies want
mm,
to see that you have emotional intelligence. They want to see that you
mm,
have some leadership quality. They want to see that you can manage yourself, right?
mm,
So these questions
mm,
just expose that side of you if you actually have that side, right? So
mm,
yeah, so generally it's just technical interviews, behavioral interviews, system design. Your soft skills have to be in check as well, and just your countenance during the interview.
mm.
Everything just wraps up to those points.
Right. So, how did you feel the first time you got your offer? Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh,
You were screaming and
oh
everything.
my
What was the
god.
experience like for you? Having put in all that effort, having fantasized about what it would be like
Oh
working
Lord,
in
I
big
didn't expect
tech.
it. I didn't expect
How
it.
was it like for you? Right.
It
Or like,
was so
yeah.
good. It
Mm-hmm.
was like months of this happened during the lockdown. I got both my BOA internship and okay, I got my BOA
Ooh.
internship offer in December and I got my Microsoft offer
Okay.
in January. So you can imagine
Okay.
how those that crossover was for me.
Right.
I crossed
Right.
over with
Right.
like two jobs.
Ah.
It was so I
Oh.
felt so good.
I believe you're Christian, right? I've seen you.
Yeah.
You're Christian, right? I'm sure
Yeah.
you dance your way. You dance overly at church. That
It was so good because
right.
this was during the lockdown. This was 2020,
Mm,
and I this was the same year I launched my app. I was so focused on getting a job.
mm,
I know I was literally in my third year in university. I hadn't even gone into final year. So I was so focused on getting a job. I worked so hard in 2020.
mm,
I feel like I
mm,
should even start working that hard now. I think I've
mm.
relaxed.
All of us, Sha.
So I worked so hard, late nights. I would be having headache. I remember like pouring cold water on my head. I would be having dreams about for loops, while loops. It was bad.
Hey.
It was
Oh my
bad.
god.
It was worth it. It was worth it. So when I applied to MS, they got back
Right.
with like a request. Oh, Chisom, would like to interview you. I was like, because that was literally the end of the year. I've already given up
Mm,
on like getting offers. But even at the last minute, these offers were still coming, and I was so
mm,
optimistic. So I
mm.
think I was even eating. I was expecting like my interview results. I just opened my email. That was in the night. That was a day before going back to school for my final year to
Right.
conclude my final year. That was the night before. So I
Right.
even had time to celebrate with my parents. And
Ooh.
so I just saw an email. I was like, your Microsoft interview results are ready. Congratulations. I was like, what?
Ah.
I was, oh my God, I was elated. I showed my
Right.
mom, showed my dad, my sister, like everybody was so happy. So I went back to school. You know, when you're going back to school with like confidence that you already have a job,
Yeah,
that
right,
confidence
right,
was so
right.
high. Like I went back to
Ah.
school. My final year project wasn't an issue because I knew that I would definitely be somewhere after
Mm,
graduating. So I
mm,
needed to push like my start date a year after so that I could
mm,
like round up with studies. So I think
mm,
I got the offer in January, but I started in November because I had to like relocate
mm,
to Lagos and
right,
all of that.
right.
So
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, it was a full circle moment. If you're listening to this podcast and you're currently working so hard for something, best
Mm,
believe that that
mm,
thing is going to come very soon. And when
mm,
it does come, you're
mm,
going to be very, very satisfied. So
mm,
just keep working
mm,
hard, honestly.
mm. That is amazing. That is really, really amazing. I could just see, I could just think about, that whole period of
Oh, it was hard.
waiting for something for so long, and then you finally get it. Now that we've given the juice part of, your life in big tech, let's get into the other part of it. I
Okay.
know it hasn't been all glamour, so
Yeah.
walk us through some of the challenges that you think you've had to, face. You may not necessarily have to give maybe specific details about the specific scenarios, but
Mhm.
generally, what are some of the challenges that you have faced with
Yeah.
this whole blessing that
Yeah.
came
It
in the
was a
pack of
blessing.
big tech?
So I think I struggled with learning. Learning is quite fast. I remember my first task was Python, and I have never written
Mm,
Python in my life. I went in like with knowledge of Java and Kotlin, like the mobile side. And my
mm,
first task was to write a Python script to do this, do that. I was like, ah, God. So this is how it starts. So I had to start learning Python, not like the
mm,
following like a course. I had to
mm,
quickly learn Python so that I could get the job done. So I wasn't even
right.
relaxed, right? So I
Mm,
already had programming experience like OOP and all of that. So it was very
right.
easy to transfer that knowledge. But I started feeling the heat almost
Mm,
immediately, right? So
mm,
the learning curve is very challenging, but it's to your own advantage because it's
mm,
still your skill set that you're building up. That's one thing I love about big tech. And
mm,
other things would be I didn't really have experience before I joined. I met people at the company that had worked at startups. So things like, oh, did you push to the main branch or did you push to the collab branch or Git? And I'm like, what's happening? Because the only branch I've pushed to is my own branch.
I created my own branch.
I
I'm the lead
created
of my own branch. Everyone should just focus on their
everything.
work.
The only thing I've pushed to is my own branch on GitHub. And I
Mm,
came to the company. I was like, oh, don't work on the main branch. You have to create your own branch,
or the own branch, and I have to create a merge request and that
PR,
kind of
and all
stuff.
of that.
Right.
So, oh, it was
Right.
tough. I was even thinking, oh, would I have performed better if I had worked for a startup? So those doubts were there, honestly. Then imposter syndrome as well, obviously. It kicked in. I was still questioning myself. Oh, did I make a mistake? Am I meant to be here? Am I too young? Should I have gotten some kind of. So I'm like, oh, Chisom, the fact that you passed through four rigorous interviews, they definitely
Mm,
saw something in you. So you shouldn't be
mm,
scared.
mm,
So I think it's just the
mm,
learning curve and a little imposter syndrome that is going to come and
mm,
go.
mm,
Then other
mm,
things would be you have to think like an engineer. You have to
mm,
think like an engineer because you're working on products that scale billions of people, right?
mm,
So you're not just thinking, oh, this is my tiny app on Play Store. No, anything you're thinking of, he has to be efficient. You
mm,
don't have to just do shabby work. Your work has to be excellent. And the good thing about the company I work in is I'm working with so many smart people. I
mm,
have so many people to run to ask questions. Oh, is this thing I'm doing right? Is this thing I'm doing wrong?
mm,
So every day you show up at work, you're fine tuning your skills. You're sharpening
mm,
like you're sharpening your skills pretty well. So challenges are there, but it's just more on the technical side. You just have
mm,
to leave your comfort zone a bit. You just have to like embrace having a good mindset, knowing that everything you're learning is still for you. The company is
mm,
literally just investing in you at the end of the
mm,
day,
mm.
right? So yeah, I think that's one challenge you're going to face. But yeah, you'll be fine. Honestly,
Mm.
you'll be fine.
Great. Every time people talk about big tech, and I know most of the time the recruitment process always has to do with coding interviews, but I realize that
Mm,
there's so many roles in big tech that people seldom talk about, that people
mm.
have actually, especially coming from Africa, because most of the time everyone who's coming from Africa thinks that they have to just go into the software engineering route.
No, no, no,
What are some of the roles that you have actually seen emerging in big tech that
no.
people can also take advantage of to get into big tech, and not to just be caught up in the whole I have to be a software engineer by force in a FAANG or something? Yeah, pretty much.
I think there are a ton of roles, and this is something I always point out to people. You must not be a software engineer. You must not
Mm,
even like to learn how to code to work in the big tech space. So
mm,
there are roles like product management, for instance, where you're
mm,
managing like the end-to-end life cycle of a product. There's
mm,
program management as well, although these names differ, responsibilities differ as well in companies where
mm,
you're like managing like the I know some program managers that manage the advocacy part of
mm,
companies, like
mm,
trying to sell or speak at events to just
mm,
make the make people know about the product. Then there is developer
mm,
advocacy as well. Most of these roles actually require you to have some knowledge of coding, but you're not going to be hands on all the
mm,
time. But I would always
mm,
advise you should still have some knowledge so you understand
mm,
exactly what you're selling. Then
mm,
other things like design in big tech, you won't really see them hiring a UI UX designer. You won't see that job
mm,
role on their careers page. What
mm,
you see is
mm,
product design, where you're
mm,
designing just interfaces of applications that are being used and all of
mm,
that.
mm, mm,
Then other roles like sales engineering, where you're kind of like an engineer, but you're speaking with stakeholders to
mm,
most likely sell a product, right?
mm,
Then project management as well, but I think that goes under product management in some
mm,
companies, so it just
mm,
depends. And I think there
mm,
are other like non-coding roles. There are like
mm,
um technical design specialist or
mm,
system design specialist or system architects. They don't really need to code per se, but they just design like a high level view of how a system
mm,
should be,
mm,
how it should
mm,
scale. But obviously you need to have like knowledge about what your
mhm,
the kind of components
mhm,
that you're putting in. So you
mhm,
don't necessarily have to code, honestly. If you're
mhm,
working as a designer or a manager in the product space, you will definitely find a slot for you.
mhm,
Right. Yeah. So
mhm. Right. Okay, let's come to the networking bit of it. So you are in the Lagos branch of
mm,
Microsoft, but then that opens you to the whole team around the world. How has it been like for you, and how have you actively used this opportunity in big tech, even though you are still in Africa,
mm.
to build solid networks, to meet up with people face to face, and to even, share your knowledge with other people, and also to also benefit from their mentorship from other countries?
Yeah, I think it's easier because I mean Microsoft has like a very huge database. So if I'm trying to get someone on LinkedIn and the person is not answering me, I just go on Teams to find you. I'll literally go on like our Teams chat, search for your name, and hit you up directly so that you know that
Mm,
yeah, we're in the same space. You don't need to be
right,
scared. I'm not trying to
right,
stalk you.
right, right, right.
So you have like leverage when it comes to like global networks, and that's something I really love because even if you can't get to the person directly, you know your manager knows someone that can get you
Mm, mm,
connected to this person. Then I think networking is a very personal movement. It's not something someone can push you to do. It's
mm,
something that you should actually come out of your comfort zone to do. So
mm,
I'm very immersed in like the Nigerian tech ecosystem. I attend a lot
mm,
of events, both the ones I'm speaking at and the ones I'm not speaking at, just to it's quite different because most of the people you'll be meeting are like engineers at startups here. You won't be meeting people from Google or right. So it's
mm,
quite different.
mm,
Like the dynamics is quite different for me in
mm,
the Lagos
mm,
office. But
mm,
networks are still networks. So how I see networks is just meeting up with people that I can add value to and they can do so
mm,
like in their own way to me and
mm,
just not seeing it like an official network, oh, this person is in my network,
mm,
but actually
mm, mm,
finding like a common ground, having like a
mm,
personal relationship with these people because at some point they're either going to need you or you're going to need them. So networking is quite it's actually kind of hard to navigate, but it's just something you need to. There's some people that I don't really know that I just come into their DM. um I just say something and just leave it at that, right? It's
Mm.
not
Mm.
forced. It's quite cringy, but
I
sometimes
know,
you just
right?
need to do what's best for you and like
Mm.
your career at the moment.
Mm. Right. we we're about to conclude very soon, and I want you to, give us the realistic nature of your life. I know you mentioned that you're a YouTuber, you're a speaker, you work in big tech and everything. Someone is there and we're like, oh my gosh, she is living the dream. I don't know if there's a Nigerian dream, but maybe you're living it. But I can
Mhm.
also imagine that it's may not be all glamorous. If you could just lay all the cards on the table and just walk us through what it is like, living an everyday life as Chisom
Oh,
and
it's
how
quite
you balance it.
it's quite stressful. Stressful. I don't recommend it to anybody
Right.
at all. Because one
Mm,
thing with me is I don't like doing one thing for a long time. Or I don't
mm,
like my routine being the same. So
mm,
if I'm showing up at work 9 a.m. and I'm leaving work 5 p.m., what am I doing from 5 p.m. till the next day? Am I just relaxing, waiting for the next work day? So I like
mm,
being hands on. I want to try out something new. This year might be a YouTube channel. Next year might
mm,
be writing a book. The other year
mm,
might be starting a community. I just want to
mm,
try my hands on different things. And
mm,
it has come to a point where most of these things sometimes I cannot handle it. It's not
mm,
so glamorous, right? Because
mm,
I have events to attend to. I have events to speak at, I have work, I have my book to market, I even have my YouTube channel to market. I have to edit, I have to make vlogs. It's fun, but I feel like if you're not overly ambitious, these things are not really important. But
right.
I think it's
Right.
just a me thing because I just see these things as building blocks. I really want to lay the foundation quite early in my
Mm,
career and also in life as well because I know that it's definitely going to evolve in the next 5, 6 years. Most of all these things I'm doing, so it's
mm,
not so glamorous, but it's very profiting.
mm,
It's very profiting. The hard work is there, but the things that you're
mm,
going to gain from like the work that you've put in would definitely inspire other people, help you in your
mm,
career, and also
mm,
just generally make life very fulfilling. Because how I see life
mm,
is you're just meant to give out your all. If you know
right.
you're good at something, just try your hands on it. There's someone there that is definitely going to help. So I
Mm,
think I love it, honestly. I feel like
mm.
I might even start another project this year. I'm not sure.
Ah,
I'm already
it's
bored.
like you just picked my mind because I was just about to
I'm
ask
already
you. We didn't
bored.
get to delve so much into your book, but I wanted to, put that in the description so that because I didn't want us to,
Oh, okay.
read the book out. I wanted people to go out and look for the book. It's an amazing book. I've seen snippets of it and it's great.
Thank
What is
you.
the next book you're gonna write? Because I've seen that, now I've seen you
Oh,
on Twitter Spaces talking more about data engineering, and it was like, Chisom, what's up with you? Today you're talking about big tech. Then today,
yeah,
like,
something is
what is the
coming up.
next thing? What is the next? What's the next book you intend to write?
I think I would want to write like a beginner's book for data engineering
Mm,
because data engineering is one field. I did Android development before I joined Microsoft. So
mm,
joining Microsoft as a software engineer, I work a lot with data. I work
mm,
a lot with data. And
mm,
I started getting curious. Oh, what exactly am I doing? Is it cloud? Is it data? Is it DevOps? So I figured I was doing mostly data engineering and I had
mm,
a lot of confusion about some certain concepts like warehousing,
mm,
pipeline, CI/CD, and all of
mm,
that. So I'm like,
mm,
if anybody actually wants to get into data engineering, let that person get the resource from me
mm, mm.
because I would want to write a book, not like a technical book that's boring to read,
But
more like
relates,
a storyline.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
you don't
relatable.
understand this. This was my exact confusion, and this is how I
Mm,
understood it, and this is how
mm,
it can help you. So, a
mm,
very, very basic beginner book on
mm,
data engineering that could help people because the field is not so popular as you have like software engineering or
mm,
analytics engineering or
mm,
like
mm,
cloud engineering.
mm,
So the goal is just to advocate more for that field, um, churn out resources, and probably speak more, give more like technical talks, and also help myself as well to learn because
mm,
at the end of the day, I'm still early in career. Yeah.
mm. I like asking my guests this question before I let them go. If there's something that you could do differently on this journey, what
Hmm.
would it be?
That's a good question. what would I do? What would I do
Who
differently?
knows? Yeah.
Um,
If you had the power to do something differently.
I don't think there's anything I would want to do differently, but I also feel that sometimes, as ambitious as I look, I hold myself back a lot. Oh,
Mm,
what if something goes wrong? What if
mm,
this happens? I have a lot of what ifs in my head. I think at
mm,
a more quiet side, I'm actually a very anxious person.
mm,
Yeah, because when I have like these huge dreams in my head, I'm always questioning myself. Oh, what if this doesn't happen? What if that doesn't happen? So I think not holding myself back and just doing it. The worst that can happen should happen. I will learn from it and reiterate the process. So
mm,
yeah, even if you're listening to this podcast, if there's anything that you're holding back from doing and you're still getting the nudge to do that thing, I feel like you should just let go and just have a go at it. Have friends around you that will encourage you. Have people in that field that you want to go into that would actually give you like some pointers. But just go ahead and do it, honestly.
mm,
There's no room
mm,
for being like anxious or scared. Yeah. So
mm.
I will stop being scared.
She's You don't have to, because those of us who are here, even though I know you mentioned that it may come off as you are overly ambitious and everything,
Yeah.
we all have those parts of us that we tend to try
Yeah.
and run away from. But I
Exactly.
would say I really admire your tenacity and how you are very intentional about giving back. Yesterday, I had a Nigerian lady, and I admire Nigerians, how you guys are go getters and everything. And then she asked me a question about why I started my podcast.
Mm,
And I told her about how, every time people were talking about tech, they were always going down the technical stuff, always
true.
talking about software engineering. But
Mm,
having spoken with people in tech, I know lawyers who are now working in legal tech. I know pharmacists who are now working as
true.
product managers. I know people, like I have a friend of mine who is working in the disability space. And I wanted all those conversations because they all add up to what? Tech.
Mm,
Because tech is, a catalyst that we're using to solve problems. You understand me? It's a tool we're using. So I just came in to, bridge those conversations, bridge that gap, get people to understand that the tech space is not just, like, I
yeah,
wanted people to see the lives of techies. Like, we are not
exactly.
just geeks sitting behind our PC every day, just being geeky. There's so many things people are doing. They're talking, they're speaking event, because how would you know what is happening in industry if you're not going for events? People think events are just a boring place. No, events is a place for you to be informed and to also get to also meet other people who can
Exactly.
encourage you in your journey. And for me, one thing that has cut across all that you have said so far is giving back. Is the
True.
giving back through your books, giving back through your YouTube channel, which I have subscribed. And if you see me
Oh,
commenting
thank
a
you.
lot, just know that you have a fan here in the UK. But it's just that attitude of, and you say you are young, and I think it's the best time to do it.
Yeah,
Pouring out ourselves. We can never say it's too late or too early. Once we have something that we feel like can be of benefit to someone, we just go out there,
exactly.
and it's admirable. So from this side, I'm also glad that you also shine the light on the fact that you are working in big tech in Nigeria and not necessarily
Yes.
big tech abroad, and
Yes.
making it know that we can also be on the continent and also make it work and still benefit from the perks of it. We didn't get into the chain, the money, and that kind of stuff, but I know money is a sensitive topic, but I'll just let that one slide. But I
Yes.
know that big tech is treating you well. We see it, face all beats, looking all good, everything fine, and all and all. But I'll just say, thank you for being a shining light. Also for just also giving back through your Twitter spaces, through your book,
Thank
and
you.
more importantly, I'm excited about the next phase of your career.
Me
I haven't been to
too.
Nigeria before, and I'm sure you do come to the UK from time to time. But when you do come around, I'm looking forward to us meeting up over tea,
Definitely.
coffee, lunch, and getting to get to know each other more. But thank you so much for making time. I really enjoyed
Thank
this.
you. Thank you so much. You're doing an amazing job. Kudos to you.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank
you.
you. From acing the art of technical interviews to navigating the complex landscape of big tech, Chisom has provided us with a roadmap to success that is practical and inspiring. Remember, the path to big tech may be challenging, but with determination, continuous learning, and the right guidance, it is a summit within reach. Thank you for listening to this episode of the TechSafe podcast. See you in the next episode.